and welcome back to this week's video. So today I am doing a quick little speed paint, but you guys are actually going to be seeing my screen on this one. For the concept of this, I wanted to draw a mermaid. I know it's nowhere close to May, but I've just really been feeling in the mood of ocean vibes. It's just really been fun. So I'm going to be jumping straight into the speed paint here. I'm going to be using the rock fixtures a lot, and last week, I believe, or the week before that, I posted a video about how I use the lasso tool a lot and how it helped me to create definite shapes, and it was really fun. So for this week, or this video, I wanted to talk about how I made this mostly using the lasso tool. I loved using it. I used it for a lot of outlines, a lot of color blocking. It was just really fun. As I'm going around here, putting in rock shapes and etc., I find it really fun to just sort of play around with stuff and to, you know, experiment with colors. I wanted to make this a very blue piece, and originally I didn't know what color scheme I was going to get to, but I'll get to that in a moment when I talk about the mermaid and how she actually was rendered. And as you can see, I'm just putting in a bunch of like lasso tool stuff. It really helped me with my harder edge shapes. It definitely encouraged me to just easily access my things and just fill things in quickly, make big bold shapes. I tend to be the artist that blends things in quite frequently, that loves to have smooth, clean edges, but harder edged lines are something I don't really do because a lot of the brushes I use are softer edged. They tend to fade out on the sides but have to have a harder center. You've seen this if you've seen my all my art materials video where I talk about both my traditional and digital supplies. So here I am filling in the mermaid, and I did her hair, and for this, like the last video that I posted, I didn't really do line art. Instead of that, I just did a really clean sketch, which you could technically categorize as line art, but I don't. And then I did something different here. I actually put in the shadows first before I put in the base colors. If you've seen a lot of my process videos, you know that I do base colors, then I do the shading, just because it makes more sense in my brain. You know, I can add the shadows once I've had the initial colors down, and I know what I'm doing. I find it a lot more difficult to shade objects if I don't know what color they are, because usually shadows tend to adapt to the color underneath them. So for example, as I'll get into this later, her tail, her mermaid tail, is going to be orange, and it's a lot easier to place orange shadows than it is to place blue shadows everywhere and then change those shadows later. I'm not really sure why my brain thinks like this, but it's just more of a top-down processing that helps me to really gather my shapes and make them feel more real, I guess. I do end up really liking how the shading looks, and I think it ends up being very fruitful by the end of this. I loved shading like this. It feels very soft, very flowy. I added a lot of harder edge shadows as well, and I don't know, I loved working on this piece. It was so enjoyable. And as I go into several renderings and putting in the base colors here now, I end up going back and doing a lot of things after the fact once I put in her mermaid tail. As you can see, I'm coloring the skin right here, and at this point in the process, I thought it felt very flat, very boring. So I moved on to the tail to sort of distract myself from that. Sometimes I do that in digital art pieces. If I'm frustrated with a section, I go to a different section and then I'll fix it later. And here I was just putting in the shadows, putting in the highlights, and I loved how the tail turned out. It had so many variations of orange and purple, as you saw me putting in, the yellow scales, and I loved it so much. So I went back into the skin and I added more reds, a bit of orange, a bit of purple in there, just to make it feel more alive. And I think that definitely added a lot of color to this, and it just overall made everything super fun and super easy. Here I am using the lasso tool again to just establish more of those colors. I gave her a bright, poppy, saturated orange tail and extra fins, and I did purple accents because I thought it would be fun. I kind of struggled, as I said earlier, with color picking for this. I already knew from the start what I wanted her skin tone to be, but if you saw how many tail options I went through purple and orange, and I eventually decided on orange, and it took a while to decide like the correct hue and saturation that I wanted. I don't know, I was just feeling a little indecisive with this piece. Then I colored her hair purple because I thought it would match. I believe this sticks, and if at any point I don't enjoy a color, I just go over to the hue, saturation, and brightness sliders in Procreate, which is the program I'm using, and I'll just mess around with those until I feel like the color fits more accurately with what I'm doing. And in the end, I will end up putting a multiply layer over everything and a lighting add glow layer just so everything looks super slay. I love that word so much. Here I am putting in the bubbles for the reflections, and I added a bit of color to them as well, adding a bit of brown to the bubbles so that they reflected her skin tone, a bit of purple all around, a bit of orange as well, just so they seem more realistic. I did the final touches of coloring her eyes, put in a multiply layer, putting in extra shadows, just in general sort of erasing things with the lasso tool to create harder and softer edges. edges, as I stated before, to give it sort of an airbrushed but underwater look. I felt like this could have been more underwater, but I honestly love it a lot still. I think I added a few seaweed, but I ended up taking these out and just putting in a few random plants. Then I did these sort of final like light greenish blue highlights. And overall, I just really like how this piece turned out. It feels fun and I just love it so much. So yeah, I'm just doing extra highlights here. I went over my line art / sketch layer in the end and I put in a lot of highlights here too. And just in general, I really enjoyed working on this piece. It took a while, and I feel like for the result, it, doesn't seem like it took forever, but I really enjoyed working on it a lot. I hope you all enjoyed watching this video. I believe my upload schedule will change a bit during the current months, but overall, I'm very happy with this piece, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye!